going to kick things off since we only have 25 minutes here, so I want to make sure that we can dive into it. Some of you may have been at the previous session on climate considerations. If so, welcome to this conversation. There may be some similar questions here, but a different set of panels with a different set of perspectives and a focus on packaging. So I'm really excited to dive in. For those of you who are just joining for this one, my name is Ben Soltoff, and we have Kirsten. Success. And only a couple minutes behind schedule. So glad to have you with us, Kirsten. I'm glad that we could brave the wilds of technology to hear and see you. And we've got our full panel. That's wonderful. I'm thrilled. So my name is Ben Soltoff. I'm an environmental innovation manager at the Yale Center for Business and the Environment, as well as the SCI Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. I support students who are starting new ventures and otherwise applying environmental innovation to problems that they're trying to solve in the world. A big part of that is the circular economy. I also write for GreenBiz, and I'm a regular contributor, so I was honored to be asked to moderate this panel, and I'm so excited to be here with our panelists. We have Luana Pinheiro, Sustainability Transformation Manager of the Americas at Tetra Pak, and Kirsten Witt, Group Director for Sustainability Communications at Coca-Cola North America. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves further with a little bit more about what is your background and your current role and responsibility. So Luana, why don't you get started?
Yeah, of course. So great to be with you this afternoon. My name is Luana Pinheiro. I'm from Brazil. I'm a chemical engineer with specialization in corporate social responsibility and sustainability management. I have been working at Tetra Pak for the last 12 years, always in the sustainability area. And for those who don't know Tetra Pak, we are a global leader in packaging and processing solutions for food and beverage industry. And my position today, I am the Sustainability Transformation Manager at Tetra Pak for Americas, which means that I'm responsible for building sustainability capabilities in our employees.
Great. And Kirsten?
Hi, Kirsten Witt. I'm from Coca-Cola. I manage our sustainability communications for North America. I've been at the company for a really long time, and I do have a communications background, and have been working in sustainability off and on for about the past 10 years or so. Really excited to be here, and I apologize for the technical snafu, but hopefully everything will go smoothly from here on out.
Kirsten, not your fault at all. We're just glad to have you with us here now. My next question, well, first off, thank you for those introductions, and everyone else who's watching this, feel free to drop in the chat where are you joining from, what's your affiliation, what brings you to circularity. I'll keep an eye on the chat to see who's here with us. The next question is why are you here? I think that's an important question to address separately from just the who are you. You know, why is the circular economy important to you as an individual, as well as the company you work for? So let's start with Luana again.
Individually speaking, I mean, because I think that there's no other way for us as a society to keep existing if we don't start considering circular economy issues in the way that we live and consume and produce. And this is why this kind of conference is very important, because the most beautiful thing and the most challenging, in my opinion, in circular economy is that we cannot do anything alone. So we need lots of people and companies and governments really engaged to make it happen. And for Tetra Pak, I know that sustainability is something that is embedded in the company's DNA since the beginning. And our sustainability strategy is based on our commitment to a low carbon circular economy, which means that we need to consider not only reuse or recycling, but also the climate impact on our operations and the entire value chain. So this is something very crucial for Tetra Pak today.
Kirsten, what about you?
And yes, absolutely adding to what Luana said, partnership and working together is absolutely critical. And that's one of the exciting things about working in the sustainability space, is just this notion of all of us working together towards to mutual goals of creating circular economy for our respective packaging or platforms, or whichever it may be, from our manufacturing side or wherever it may be. And especially for Coca-Cola, as we look at kind of how we're going to be emerging from this global pandemic, it's more important than ever before that all of us kind of begin to think about building back stronger and building back together stronger with sustainability in mind, and beginning with kind of a circular kind of thinking as we approach new products, redoing things the way, or redoing the way we might be doing things in the future, and start to think about what does growth and coming out of a pandemic look like in a sustainable way.
Thanks both. I'm excited to hear that you have such a commitment to the circular economy and a passion for it. I want to get a little bit more specific about that. What are the goals that your companies have set around the circular economy? What about on emissions reduction, and how do those goals align with one another? And let's start with Luana again.
Okay, so Tetra Pak's strategy for 2030 has one of the core pillars called Lead the Sustainability Transformation, and it comprises two goals. The first one is leading with low carbon circular economy solutions, and our main ambition here is to achieve what we call the ideal package of the future, that is fully renewable, fully recyclable, without compromising food safety. And the second goal is enhancing sustainability across our value chain. And here I can mention some of our newest commitments. That's to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions in our operations by 2030 and across the entire value chain by 2050. And also our goal to use only and 100 renewable electricity in our operations by 2030. These are internal goals, but they are very, very aligned with our global commitments too. So for example, Tetra Pak's signatory of the New Plastics Economy from Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We have our targets approved by the Science Based Targets initiatives. So everything is connected.
And Kirsten, how about you?
And for Coca-Cola, first and foremost, with circular thinking in mind, we recognize that packaging waste is a global issue, and we want to do that. In 2018, we did set a global goal to collect and recycle packaging we put in the marketplace by 2030, and we're working towards that. Also, as part of that goal, we have committed to make our packaging 100% recyclable by 2025, which is consistent with the Ellen MacArthur commitment, as well as increase our use of recycled content in our packaging to 50% by 2030. And part of those packaging goals are very critical also to kind of the work that we're doing around climate. And we have also set science-based targets for climate that do incorporate packaging as part of that, and we have set a goal to reduce our absolute emissions by 25%, set at 2015 levels by 2030. And these are science-based targets that have been set that represent the company's contribution to carbon that we would need to reduce in order to keep the climate at that safe level of 2 degrees. So together, all of this kind of is obviously mutually working together to enable us to reduce our footprint across packaging, as well as reduce our emissions across all of our manufacturing and all of our packaging as well.
Thanks both. So a couple of threads that I picked up on there of kind of intertwining between your packaging goals and carbon goals included that they're both tied to a mission of environmental stewardship and raising ambition around environmental stewardship, setting goals that are based on other standards within the industry, as well as what is necessary and science-based to reduce the impacts on the world, and also working across value chains to work with not just within your companies, but with partners. And those all seem like ways that you can clearly align on both of those fronts. But what about trade-offs between those different goals? What are trade-offs maybe between embedded emissions in raw materials of packaging versus the processes throughout the product life cycle? I'd love to hear a little bit more about where those things might clash.
Well, I can start question then, because you can see, I will put here the link on chat. Our latest climate impact report says that 49% of our global emissions in Tetra Pak comes from the production of the raw materials that we purchase from our suppliers. So that's a lot. And that's why we work so close with our suppliers to really understand which are the opportunities to make their processes more efficient. But at the same time, that's also why Tetra Pak's focusing on improving or increasing renewable plant-based content and packaging composition, and work with sustainable and responsible sourcing. For example, we have FSC for the paperboard, we have Bom Sucro certification for the plant-based polymers that come from sugarcane, and Aluminum Stewardship Initiative for the aluminum part, of course. We don't have today recycled content in our packages composition due to some legal and technical requirements, but I can say about the end of life of our packages that it's responsible for 7% of our global emissions. And of course, if we can ensure the proper recycling of our packages, we are also improving our impacts on that.
Kirsten, where do you see trade-offs?
And, absolutely, there are always trade-offs between different types of packaging formats. Our approach has been to design with circular economy in mind to begin with as we approach packaging for our beverages. And so we look for packaging that has value as an end market, that has a recycling system available to us, that we can ideally get back to us so that we can incorporate the recycled content from that package back into our material. That is part of kind of our overall World Without Waste strategy. So yes, there are different packaging trade-offs, but at the end of the day, when we can get all of our packaging back, then so that it can be reused to make new bottles or cans or glass bottles, whichever it may be, ideally, that's where we would want, ideally. If it goes to a secondary use, that's okay too. But first and foremost, we really do want to get our packaging back into the recycling stream so that it can be reused, so that we can incorporate over time more and more recycled content, or use other types of materials, whether it's plant-based materials or other new materials that are still yet to be discovered.
Great. Kirsten, I want to go back to you on this follow-up, but I know there's issues with infrastructure in the US right now for recycling, for collection, and also in consumer behavior. How do those infrastructure issues and recovery challenges affect any trade-offs between circular goals and carbon goals that you may be facing?
It's definitely, especially in the US where recycling rates are lower, it is a challenge to try and make sure that we're able to collect enough material to use back into our packaging. And that's truly where the partnership comes in. Partnerships are so valuable right now to enable us to improve collections and work together to improve the collection of our packaging. And Tetra Pak and Coca-Cola and so many other companies are working together on multiple kinds of partnerships around collection that enable us to hopefully do more and more in the coming years, working together. Just joined the Plastics Pact, which I think was announced here at Circularity a couple of days ago, which is a really exciting opportunity for us to kind of continue to work together on the plastics value stream and work to drive those collection networks together and sort of really work closely together to make sure that there is packaging material that's being used that has a value and can be collected and reused and recycled, so that we are always keeping it within the recycling stream and within our supply chain over time.
Great. Well, I'm glad you brought up partnerships. That's a great tie-in to my next question, which is about coalitions and collaborations. You mentioned the Plastics Compact. For both of you, what other coalitions and collaborations have you seen being effective at raising the bar and driving progress? And Luana, how about you?
I can say that partnerships are really key today to reach these circular economy goals, and from suppliers to customers to governments and so on. But I would like to mention here one of the most significant collaborations that we have in US to improve and increase cartons recycling. That is the Carton Council. Carton Council is an industry association founded in 2009 and is made up of several paperboard cartons manufacturers like Tetra Pak. And it's a good example of how a pre-competitive collaboration can give good results. So just some numbers for you to understand what I'm talking about. In 2009, when Carton Council was created, only 18% of households in the US could have access for recycling, for carton recycling due to curbside collection. And now we have this number increased to 61% in 49 states. So Carton Council is doing a great job, and they have several ambitions for the future. And if you have more doubts, I see here in the chat many questions about how to recycle cartons in your community in the US. You can go to recyclecartons.com and find more info there. So it's just one of the examples.
Kirsten, did you have any other examples of collaborations to highlight?
Definitely, in working through associations like the Carton Council and through, for us, the beverage industry, our own, the American Beverage Association has proved to be great, a partnership opportunity through all of us member companies, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper have come together and then put together a 100 million investment fund, and the program's called Every Bottle Back, and it's focused on collecting and investing in community recycling across the country with the goal of collecting 80 million pounds of packaging over the next 10 years as all of us work together to kind of work towards our goals of reducing our packaging footprint and collecting our packaging back and putting it back into our respective supply chains. So it's a really strong partnership. It just kicked off last year. And already we've invested in communities in Dallas, in Wisconsin, in Oklahoma, and there'll be plenty more over the next couple of years where we're investing in improving and upgrading community recycling. And so that's just one of the examples. I think both Tetra Pak and Coca-Cola are part of the Recycling Partnership, which is another organization. I know that they have they're very active at the circularity panels. People have probably heard from them throughout this year or week. But again, another example of a way in which we can all work together to improve community recycling and invest in upgrades where they're needed or bring recycling to communities that do not have it, and look at other ways to improve the recycling stream.
Great, thanks both. I want to continue on this thread of collaboration. You know, Luana, Tetra Pak is often a supplier of packaging to others. How do you work with your buyers? Are they also part of some of the coalitions you mentioned, and kind of how do you drive change from that angle?
Yeah, the first thing is that Tetra Pak is always working with the customers to understand which are their sustainability goals, so that we can see how Tetra Pak can help them to reach these goals with our expertise and with our portfolio. So, for example, in our processing equipment and services solutions portfolio, we have a huge amount of things and solutions and services that we can offer to customers to minimize their water consumption, energy consumption, food waste in their processes and their operations. And from the packaging side, we're always talking with them and consulting our customers to understand their opinion about our strategy, our roadmap for the future portfolio. We work with them to scale up collection and recycling, and of course to improve consumer awareness. So Kirsten said about the recycling partnership. That's all about consumer awareness.
Great. Kirsten, could you speak a little bit more about how you work with some of your suppliers, looking the other way upstream in the supply chain?
Absolutely. You know, we often work with our suppliers across the supply chain, and often in kind of a pre-competitive way to enable us to maybe set packaging standards or set standards for systems so that they are, you know, as efficient as possible, using the best materials possible. An example of that, are things like the Plastic Pact or, Ellen MacArthur and other types of organizations, WWF, for example, that enable us to all work together against kind of a common problem and develop solutions that, become standard. Another thing that we're doing with suppliers is also looking at how we can deliver our beverages without any packaging at all. And looking at how can we apply, the different technologies we already have, such as a freestyle beverage dispenser type of technology. How can we expand on that? And so that's more work that we're doing, looking at how we can provide, a bottled water type of product, in a refillable package and other things like that. So it is looking at kind of all these different ways that we can deliver beverages in the most efficient, environmentally sustainable way possible that kind of drives that circular economy. It takes many different forms across our supply chain and across the partners and suppliers that we work with.
Great. Kirsten, I'm glad you brought up reusable containers. I've seen a lot of great discussion in the chat, and that's something that's come up about 3 times. So I do want to dig into that a little bit more in our last couple of minutes. Going forward, what potential do you see from reusable and refillable containers? And do you see that as something that can continue to scale?
And that was directed to me?
We'll start with
First,
you. And
sorry,
if
Okay, sure. Yes, it is an area that we are doing more and more work in the U.S. As well as across the world. In many markets, refillable bottles are very common and used very widely in Brazil, for example, and other places around the world. And in the U.S., we are continuing our work to bring more refillable type of options to consumers in different places. It works really well in venues, pre-COVID. So I think as we go through kind of the COVID experience, that's going to change a little bit. And we're going to continue to kind of work on how you deliver refillable packaging in the best way possible. And work on ways that we can deliver our packaging with as little packaging as possible. I think there'll be more and more opportunities as we kind of like emerge out of this crisis and emerge stronger with new sustainable models that we can deploy in different environments.
Great. Luana, anything to add there? I know we're nearing the end of our time.
Well, Tetra Pak's not working with packages, but we are working to improve renewable content in our packages, to explore recycled content both for primary and secondary packaging, developing new alternatives for example, the plastic straw, paper straw, tethered caps, other anti-littering solutions for the openings, and enhancing recycling by design. This is the 4 key pillars of our sustainability roadmap for the future.
Wow, that's great. So I think we're at 25 minutes. This time really flies by. It's amazing. And there's been such an engaged discussion in the chat. So thank you all for your enthusiasm there. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions. Just to wrap up with our panelists, if you have any further resources, please feel free to just pop some links in the chat for people to follow up, as well as how folks may be able to contact you. So please take a moment to do that. And as you do that, I just want to extend a huge thank you to you for being here. It's been a great conversation. It's been great to hear about the work you're doing, as well as your visions for the future and your goals on both carbon and the circular economy. And I know we're nearing the end of this conference, so it's just great to be here with the both of you. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and I hope you learned something from this session. I'm going to put my LinkedIn and Twitter in the chat if you'd like to follow up with me. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
So thank you, guys. Thanks, Kirsten.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you. Yes,
Nice
bye-bye.
to meet you.